What's better, a deductible IRA or a Roth IRA? Can you have an IRA if you also have a 401k at work? And where should you start saving for retirement first? We'll answer these questions and more on this, the 37th episode of the DoughRoller Podcast.
Welcome to the DoughRoller Podcast, where the best thing money can buy is financial freedom. We help you make more, spend less, and invest the rest. And now your host, Rob Berger.
Whether you're just starting out, buried under a mountain of debt, or well on your way to financial freedom, this is the podcast to help you take your finances to the next level. Hey, welcome to day 30 of the 31-day money challenge. We are cruising right through the month of January. I hope you found this crazy thing I'm trying to do here, 31 podcasts in 31 days, helpful as a way to sort of kickstart your finances, to kickstart your journey towards financial freedom here in 2014. I'll tell you, it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience for me. It's been a real kick in the butt as I've started to realize just, for example, how carelessly I can spend money sometimes. And, blogging about finances for so long, you think I'd have it all figured out. Oh, no. I wish that were true. My wife probably wishes that were true. But I'm making as many or more mistakes than the next guy. And this whole process of putting together 31 podcasts in 31 days has been a big help for me in getting a couple of things changed in our own finances and our own investments. I did some rebalancing in our investment accounts and a number of other things that have been very helpful. So what do we have in store for today? What we're going to do is tackle retirement accounts. 401k versus IRA, deductible versus Roth, where should you save first, those sorts of things. That's what we're going to do today. Going to kind of walk through at a high level where you should be saving your money. And of course, there's no one right answer. It's going to depend on a lot of circumstances that are specific to each individual. Do you even have a 401k or other retirement plan where you work? Do they give you a Roth 401k option? Can you contribute to an IRA, a Roth IRA? Are you eligible? If you make IRA contributions to a sort of traditional account, are they deductible? Does your employer match your 401k contributions? I mean, there's a number of things to consider. Fortunately, at one level, it can seem really complicated and overwhelming, but the good news is, if you kind of walk through it step by step, it's not so bad. So that's what we're going to do today. Before we get to it, though, let me first thank our sponsors. Betterment, an online platform that invests your money in stock and bond ETFs. You just select the percentage you want in each, and Betterment does the rest. They rebalance your investments for you and reinvest your dividends automatically. You can check them out at betterment.com. And Personal Capital is a free online tool that aggregates all of your investing accounts, retirement and non-retirement, including the 401ks and IRAs we'll be talking about today. Personal Capital shows you your performance across all your accounts, your asset allocation, as well as the fees you're paying, again, across all of your accounts. And they bring it all together in one place. You can check them out at personalcapital.com. Okay, so what I want to do today is kind of walk through our options for saving for retirement. I want to look at a 401k, want to look at IRAs, as well as the Roth alternatives for both, Roth 401k and a Roth IRA. And I kind of want to walk through it and look at what options are best. Where should you begin to save for retirement? And if you've maxed out one option, are there other options available to you? Kind of walk through a progression. And the starting point is, I think, probably the easiest, and that is for those that have a 401k or other workplace retirement plan like a 403b or a 457. If you have that option and your employer matches some or all of your contributions, to me, it's an easy choice. That's the first place you should be saving for retirement. It's just it's free money from your employer. I don't have an employer match where I work now, but I did once before at a previous employer, and boy, your account adds up quick when your employer's matching some or all of your contributions. So if that is an option for you, to me, that is absolutely the first place you should be saving your retirement dollars, at least contributing enough to maximize the benefit. Now, in the case of a 401k, the contribution limit, and this does change from year to year, it tends to go up slowly, although not every year, but you'll want to check this depending on when you're listening to this podcast. But in 2013, for example, the contribution limit for a 401k was $17,500, and if you were 50 or older, you could add an additional $5,500. Now, for an employer match, you may be able to maximize that match without contributing up to that limit. In other words, your employer may match, but only to a certain amount, and so you may maximize that employer benefit before you reach your contribution limit with a 401k. And that kind of leads us to the second question. If you've maximized that benefit, you've contributed enough to get the most of that matching benefit, or perhaps your employer doesn't offer a match, where should you invest for retirement first? Should you just stick with this 401k, or should you look at IRA options? And to answer that question, we need to see what's available to us, and we need to understand if we do make contributions to an IRA, are those contributions deductible? That's the first thing we need to figure out. And the second thing is a Roth IRA an option for us? Do we qualify for a Roth IRA? So let's tackle those briefly. And by the way, I'll be throwing out a lot of different numbers in terms of what you qualify for, what your income has to be. But don't worry, I'm going to link to a ton of things in the show notes so that you can check this all out online, including posts I've written on DoughRoller, but also I'll have links to the IRS. Their main publication on IRAs is publication 590, and I will link to that as well. So, but let's kind of tackle these at least at a high level. So let's start with an IRA contribution. Is it deductible? And just to put the numbers in perspective, for a traditional or Roth IRA, the current contribution limit in 2013 was $5,500, obviously a lot lower than a 401k. And the catch-up contribution for those 50 and older was $1,000, again, a lot less than the $5,500 catch-up for a 401k. So those are the limits there. But so now the question is, if you make a contribution to an IRA, whatever the amount is it deductible? And that depends on a number of factors. So first off, if you're single and you do not have a retirement plan at work, you don't have a 401k or other retirement plan, your contribution will be deductible. It doesn't matter how much you make. And in that sense, it's very similar to a 401k. You know, you can contribute to a 401k with pre-tax dollars regardless of how much you make. You could be the highest paid person in your company, and you'd still have access to your company 401k. And so the idea was, well, if you don't have a retirement plan, you should be able to get the same benefit, the same tax deduction, if you will, from a traditional IRA, albeit at a lower contribution limit. Now, if you're married and you and your spouse, neither of you have a retirement plan, same rule applies. You'll be able to deduct your IRA contribution regardless of how much you guys make. Now, where things get tricky is when either you have access to a retirement plan or you're married and your spouse does. And whether or not the IRA contribution is deductible in those circumstances depends on how much you make and your filing status. So let me just kind of give you an example of a couple of numbers. And again, I'll link to more details in the show notes because, it'll be important for you to dig into this and make sure you've got the right answer. But according to the IRS, if you are covered by a retirement plan at work and you're single, you can still deduct the full amount of your IRA contribution if you make $59,000 or less. And actually, they base this on your modified adjusted gross income. And for that, something like TurboTax or your accountant will obviously be able to calculate that. It's part of doing your income tax. But the number for your modified adjusted gross income, $59,000 or less if you're single, or I should add head of household, you can take the full deduction. Once you start to go above $59,000 in modified adjusted gross income, you can only take a partial deduction. They begin to phase out this deduction. And again, that starts once you go over $59,000. And then once you hit $69,000, you get no deduction at all. So if you're over $69,000 in modified adjusted gross income and you're single or head of household, a deductible IRA is not an option for you. Now, if you're married and you file jointly or qualifying widow or widower, I should say, but you are covered with a retirement plan at work, you have a 401k or other retirement plan, the numbers get a little higher. You can take a full deduction so long as your modified adjusted gross income is $95,000 or less. And once it goes over $95,000, it begins to phase out. And once you hit $115,000, there's no deduction at all. And I should add, I'm pretty sure these are 2013 numbers, and I'll confirm that in the show notes. I'm looking at my notes now. Yeah, these are 2013 numbers. The 2014 numbers are just a tad higher, and they will be in the IRS publication 590 document that I'll link to. But just as an example, married filing jointly and you are covered by a retirement plan at work, it goes from $95,000 or less for a full deduction in 2013. It goes to $96,000 or less in 2014. But again, all of those numbers will be in the IRS publication that I'll link to. Now, what if you're not covered by a retirement plan at work, but your spouse is? Well, then the numbers get a little higher, but you still gotta check them to make sure you can deduct your IRA contribution. So if you're married, you file a joint return, your spouse is covered by a plan at work, but you're not, you can still take a full deduction on your IRA contributions so long as the modified adjusted gross income is $178,000 or less. Again, this is for 2013. I think it goes up a couple of thousand in 2014. That then begins to phase out, and then again, 2013 numbers, once you hit $188,000 or more, there's no deduction. So these are important numbers to understand. Again, they get a little mind-numbing after a while, but fortunately, the publication I'll link to has very easy-to-follow tables, actually what I'm looking at now and reading from. And so you'll be able to, I think, figure it out pretty easily. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up with an email. But that's, to figure out what we should do next. We've hopefully taken advantage of an employer match if it's there. Now what should we do? You need to figure this out to know if a deductible IRA is an option for you. And now we turn to the Roth IRA. We figure out whether your regular IRA contributions are deductible. Now we want to know, well, do we have as an option a Roth IRA? Is that a possibility for us or not? And again, I'm going to focus on 2013 numbers, but the IRS publication has the 2014 numbers as well. So here's the deal: if you're married and you're filing a joint return, and the modified adjusted gross income is less than $178,000, you can go ahead and contribute up to $5,500 or $6,500 if you're 50 or older in a Roth IRA. Once your modified AGI goes above 178, the amount you can contribute starts to phase out, starts to go lower. And then once you hit 188,000 or more, you can't contribute to a Roth IRA. So that's the deal. If you're married, filing jointly, I'm looking at the numbers for 2014, and it looks like they go up a little bit. The 178 goes up to 181. So again, depends which tax year you're looking at, and you'll need to figure out the numbers, but they're both in the publication. And just to give you another frame of reference, if you're single or you're head of household or you're married filing separately, well, I'll put the married filing separately on hold. That gets a little complicated. Let's say if you're single or you're head of household, you can contribute the maximum to a Roth IRA if your modified adjusted gross income is less than $112,000. Again, those are 2013 numbers. Then it starts to phase out how much you can contribute, and then you can't contribute at all once you hit $127,000 or more. If you're married filing separately, all of these rules change dramatically. So if that's you, you really need to dig into this publication 590 that I'm going to link to. Again, they have tables that make it easy. I'm not going to go through all of those. I think for most married couples, they're filing joint returns. But if you are married filing separately, understand that these rules change dramatically, and so you want to check them out. So where are we? Well, we've again hopefully maxed out a 401k to take care of the employer match. And then we figured out whether a deductible IRA is an option for you, figured out whether a Roth IRA is an option for you. And once you know those, and we're going to assume for this that those are all options. Obviously, if they're not options for you, then your decision gets easier. But what should you do now? You've maxed out your employer benefit. Maybe you have some options. You can continue to contribute to your 401k. You can open up a deductible IRA. You can open up a Roth IRA. And you may even have a Roth 401k. And again, those are offered by your employer. It's not an option where I work, but if you have that option, one thing to know about a Roth 401k is that unlike a Roth IRA, there are no income limits. Anyone can contribute to a Roth 401k. In fact, I have one from a previous employer, a small amount in it, but that may be an option for you. It may not be. So, goodness, it's like, how do we figure out what we should do? So here's how I think through these issues. The first thing I ask is, I start with a Roth. Does a Roth IRA make sense for me? And here's the deal on a Roth. So as you probably know, with a regular 401k or deductible IRA, you contribute pre-tax dollars now, and they grow over your working years. And then when you start to use the money in retirement, it's then that you pay income tax on the money that you take out. A Roth works very differently. You don't contribute pre-tax dollars. You have to pay taxes now on the amount you contribute, whether it's to a Roth 401k or a Roth IRA. That's the bad news. The good news is it grows tax-free. It's not tax-deferred, it's tax-free. And when you take the money out when you retire, absolutely no income tax on all of the gains that you've earned over the course of your working years. So that's how a Roth works. Now, there are some other differences in terms of with a traditional deductible IRA or 401k. There's a required minimum distribution once you hit 70 and a half. A Roth doesn't have that because there's no tax consequences for taking your money out. There can be some advantages with a Roth if you want to leave the money to your children or grandchildren or whatever. But in terms of putting that aside, just in terms of saving for retirement, that's how they work. And here's the deal on figuring out whether a Roth makes sense. If the money you save, if your tax rate when you make the contribution, let's say you're at combined state and federal of 25%. If you contribute to a deductible IRA, let's say, you'll save 25% of your contribution in taxes, right? And let's assume that when you take the money out in retirement, you'll pay 25% in taxes. Yes, I know that's a big assumption, particularly if you're younger. What the tax laws are going to look like 30, 40 years from now, who knows? And what your own personal situation is going to look like, who knows? But let's just make that assumption for the moment. Your tax rate today will be the same as your tax rate when you take the money out in retirement. If that's the case, there is no difference between a Roth and a deductible IRA or a Roth 401k and a regular 401k. The net result at the end will be the same. Where a Roth can help you is if your tax rate today when you make the contributions is lower than what it will be when you start to pull money out in retirement. And of course, that raises the question, and you'll find thousands of articles on the internet about this. Well, how do you decide? How does anyone know, what the tax rates are going to look like? I mean, you think about all the variables. For one thing, you may live in a state now that has a high income tax, but plan to retire in a state like Florida that doesn't have state income tax. Chances are your tax rate could be lower because of that. You may make a lot of money now and won't have as much in retirement. So even if the tax rates don't change, the amount of your taxable income could go down, or maybe you have a situation where it might go up significantly. So this is a very difficult question to answer. Here's how I approach it for me, is that, and I talk to my children about this as well. I'm looking at the federal tax rates. They range from a low of 10%, that's on income from zero to about $9,000 if you're single, and about $18,000 if you're married, all the way up to 39.6%. That hits for income over about $406,000 if you're single, $457,000 if you're married. So here's my view. If I were in the lower two tax brackets, the 10 and 15% tax bracket, I'd be putting my money in a Roth. That would be my first choice. So I would max out the 401k to the extent there was an employer match, and then I would divert the rest either to a Roth 401k if that was available to me, or I'd open up a Roth IRA. That's what I would do. That's to me, is there a risk that your tax rates could be lower when you retire? Sure, there's no guarantee here. There's just too many unknowns, but it would be a risk I would be willing to take. Conversely, if I were in the higher tax bracket, say certainly 35%, 39.6%, probably even the 33% tax bracket, I would not be using a Roth. There's just the benefit today of getting that deduction is just too good to pass up. Is it possible that my tax rates could be higher in retirement? Again, sure, there's no guarantees. But that would be my choice. And then if I were in the middle tax bracket, the 25% and the 28%, it's kind of a crapshoot, I mean, I might do a little bit of both. If I've got a traditional 401k, I might put a little in a Roth IRA. I might kind of cover my bases. That to me is a hard call to make. And so that's how I think through the question of a Roth IRA. And I think that is, once you get the full benefit of any employer match, to me, the next thing to answer is, does a Roth make sense? Again, whether it's a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k. And if it does, that's where I'd be putting my money. Now, I want to put aside for a moment 401k versus IRA. We'll talk about that in a minute. But just in terms of Roth versus deductible, that's how I look at it. That's how I would answer it for me. Now, there are calculators out there that try to help you with this decision. The problem is they still have to assume something about your tax rates now and what your tax rates will be when you retire. That really drives the entire decision, and a calculator can't really help you figure that out, right? I mean, that's going to take some guesswork, and it's for that reason that I kind of look at it based on what we know. We don't know what the tax rates are going to be 40 years from now or what our own individual situations are going to be like, but we do know what taxes we're paying now, and that's basically what I base the decision on, where I fall within the federal income tax rates. To me, the lower the rates are on your income, the less you make today, the more likely a Roth is going to be a good choice. Again, there's absolutely no guarantees. You just got to make the best decision you can with the information that you have. And then if a Roth is, of course, not your best option, or if it is and you've maxed out, say, a Roth IRA, then you've got you kind of go back to your finishing to contribute to either your 401k, or if a Roth IRA isn't available to you or is not a good choice for you in your opinion, then you've still got the question, well, do I go with the deductible IRA or do I finish contributing to my 401k? And that's sort of the last question, really. IRAs, whether they're Roth or deductible, versus a 401k, again, whether it's a Roth or a traditional 401k. How do you make that decision? And here's my take on it. The first thing I ask is, do I have good investment options in my 401k? And to me, good means low cost and generally passive index funds. If you've listened to the portions of the 31-day money challenge where I talk about asset allocation and investment selections, you know I'm a big fan of the Vanguard type low-cost index funds. So my first question is, do I have that kind of investment available to me in my 401k? If I do, I think the 401k is a great option. Why? It's easy. You don't have to go and open another account. You've already got it there at your employer. They take the money right out of your paycheck based on how much you want to contribute. It's very easy, to log into your account, whoever's administering it. For me, it's Fidelity, and change my future contributions, whether it's the amount or where I'm investing it, to move my money around to different funds if I want to rebalance or whatever. It's just real simple. So why not take advantage of it? Plus, of course, you have a much higher contribution limit. So that is my choice. And there's a lot of talk out there. I read on the internet how IRAs are better because you can pick your investments. You can pick where you open up your account. That is very true. But if you've got great investments with your 401k, take advantage of them. That's my view. Now, if you don't, if your investment options are very expensive, very limited, and a lot of 401ks fall into this category, then in my view, you don't want to start investing in high expense mutual funds, particularly actively managed funds for the most part, that I think over the long term, particularly with their high fees, aren't going to beat the indexes. If that is the case, then I default back to an IRA first. And I would, we're assuming that you can contribute to a Roth IRA and or a deductible IRA. And if that's the case, I would open one up and max that out to the $5,500 or $6,500 if you're 50 or older first. And the thing is yes, you do have to do a little extra work. You got to go out there and you got to open up an IRA somewhere, whether it's at Vanguard, Fidelity, Betterment. You can open. I've had an IRA at Scott Trade, so you can open them up at a brokerage firm. But it may seem overwhelming. The truth is, it's very, very easy. But it is some extra steps. But to me, to get access to low cost, passive index funds it's worth the effort. And then, once you have it set up, I mean, you can set it up with automatic deposits every month from your checking account. It's not, once you get it set up, it kind of runs on its own. I have automatic deposits that go in every month to Betterment. I don't even think about it. Oh, I think about it because they send me an email every time they make the deposit. But other than that, I don't think about it. And so that's what I would do if the investment choices at your 401k or 403b aren't very good. But still, again, if you were able to max out that IRA, then I would still go back to that 401k unless the investment choices were just awful. But in talking to people, some 401ks don't have the best options, but usually you can find one or two decent mutual funds, investing options. I know I can at Fidelity, and they have some very good index funds. Except for maybe extreme cases where you just have awful investing options, I would then go back and finish maxing out the 401k. So I know I've kind of thrown a lot at you today. Let's just kind of recap here. So step one is max out your 401k to the extent you need to take advantage of any employer match, assuming you have it. Once you've done that, or if you don't have an employer match, then you need to answer two questions. One, would any IRA contributions you make be deductible? And I'll kind of walk through that, but I'll have links in the show notes to help you with that. And two, do you qualify for a Roth IRA? And you need to answer those two so that you now know what your options are. So once you know your options, the next step for me is to figure out whether a Roth makes sense. Again, some guesswork here. I base it on what your current tax rates are. If you're in the lower tax brackets, I think a Roth is a good choice. If you're in the higher tax brackets, well, a couple of things. If you're in the higher tax brackets, you're not going to qualify for a Roth, but you might have a Roth 401k option available to you. And so if you're in the higher tax brackets, for me, it doesn't make sense to contribute to the Roth. And then if you're somewhere in the middle, it's kind of a crapshoot, but that's, you're just going to have to make the best decision you can, but it's going to be, I think, less clear. So once you make that decision, then the question is IRAs versus 401ks, whether it's a Roth IRA versus a Roth 401k or a deductible IRA versus a traditional IRA. And to me, it comes down to your investment choices within your 401k. If they're good, stick with it. I mean, why not? It's easy to set up. It comes right out of your check. It's no reason not to do that. If your investment choices aren't so good, then I would open up an IRA. Again, a little extra work, but not that hard. I've got IRAs at Vanguard. I've had them at Scottrade. Once you set them up, you can do automatic contributions, very easy, and you can pick your low-cost investment options there. So that is kind of how I think through where to save for retirement. Not the investment choices themselves, but what types of savings accounts. And we've really only scratched the surface. There's about a dozen different types of IRAs. I mean, in addition to the deductible IRA, the Roth IRA, there's a SEP IRA for folks that are self-employed. I have one of those because of my business. There's an inherited IRA. There's rollover IRAs, right? When you roll over from a 401k into an IRA, that's called a rollover IRA. So the number of options, particularly as your situation gets a little more complicated, there's just a ton of options out there. And if you have questions about any of that, feel free to shoot me an email. I wanted to kind of cover just the basics today that cover most people in most situations, but happy to try to field any questions you may have. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. And that brings this episode to a close. As always, you can get the show notes. Just go to DoughRoller.net/podcast 37. They'll be very important today. I'll have a lot of links to a lot of material to help you sort through all of this. You can subscribe to this podcast. Just go to DoughRoller.net/iTunes. You can also leave a review there. Always grateful for the reviews to help me make the show as good as I possibly can. You can sign up for our free newsletter. It goes out every Saturday, packed full of resources and tips to help you make the most of your money. That's at DoughRoller.net/newsletter. So tomorrow will be the last day of our 31-day money challenge. I'm going to be answering a ton of questions from you, the listener. Appreciate them coming in. If you have more questions, don't hesitate to email me dr@DoughRoller.net. I read every email and respond to every email. So until tomorrow, remember, the best thing money can buy is financial freedom.